best of our ability as coaches.
Okay.
That sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, I'll put 20 minutes on the clock just so you know how much time is going by.
All right.
And whenever you're ready, you can just pretend that I've just given you this wonderful introduction.
All right. Thank you, Kelly, for that wonderful introduction.
You're welcome.
As Kelly said, I've been coaching about 20 years. I've coached my own children as well as other people's kids, teams that don't have my kids on them. I've been a paid coach for high school. I've been a paid coach for soccer clubs. I've coached basketball as well as mostly soccer, but basketball and some baseball. I could recall having this reoccurring dream when I was a young man. I was working as an aerospace engineer, and the dream, I'd go into my boss would call me into his office and say, "Hey, Kent, we want you to be the soccer coach for the Boeing company." Boeing doesn't even have a soccer team. I don't know why I had that dream. I guess coaching has been in my DNA. So I started coaching my own kids, and I've been coaching ever since. I no longer coach my own kids. They've all grown up and moved on to other things. But I still like coaching. So I always ask myself, why do I coach? A lot of reasons, I guess. But let me ask that to you, Brendan. Why do you coach?
Well, I don't actually coach right now, which is too bad. But when I did coach, I really, one, I thought it was a great way to give back to the community. And two, I love the sports that I coach. I coached hockey and football, and I love being involved with both the athletes and just the strategies and tactics of the game.
Okay, enthusiasm for the sport. How about you, Kelly? Why do you coach?
I think I got into coaching because it was a great opportunity for me right out of college to just keep involved in sports when I knew I probably wasn't going to be playing for a little while. But as I've gone on my last 17 years of coaching, I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun, and I like seeing the athletes that I coach really enjoy the sport and try to get the most out of it that they can. So it's for me, it's fun.
It's fun. Yeah, and that's part of it. Is I was part of a business where we had programming for really young kids, and so people had paid us money to be in this program. And part of that is I became very sensitive as to why people would put their kids in this program. And then I started realizing it had to be about development. Parents want to see the development that comes from sports because they usually played sports themselves, and they saw a lot of good life lessons come from playing sports. But the other side of it, too, is if their kids didn't want to go, they didn't do it. So we realized that we had to really tap into the motivation of the kids. And we had two customers. We had the parents who were looking for development, and the kids, why the kids wanted to come?
Fun.
Because it's fun, right. So I've realized over the years that from little kids to high schoolers, you ask them the same question, and you always get the same answer, almost 100%, because it's fun. Rarely are you going to see a player tell you, "I'm playing because it's good for my personal development." It's fun. Their definition of fun changes over the years. And so as a coach, we can become very sensitive to that. How do we deliver to those different people, develop the players, as well as make it fun for the players. I've also learned over the years, too, that when I first started coaching, I used to think that if this was coaching, this much of it was knowing the X's and the O's and the strategies, and this much was just how to communicate and motivate. I've since learned over the years that this much is knowing the strategy, the X's and the O's, and this much of coaching is knowing how to motivate and communicate. So part of why I'm here with PCA leading this workshop is because I've came across them and I realized they've put together some very good researched materials, very presentable, it's very organized on this part of the coaching, how to communicate and motivate players so that they have a good experience. The players think it's fun. All those life lessons are learned. So that's why I'm here. I believe in this program, and I think this is a great 90 minutes for you to learn very succinctly about this part of the coaching. So there's 3 principles. As we skip some of the other parts of the presentation. There's 3 principles with the PCA. And the first one we're going to talk about right now is the Elm Tree of Mastery. Kelly, is there any way you can put up that PowerPoint?
Oh,
I
yeah.
have it. I think is this the same one that you sent me, or is it a different one? Because I have one open.
Do you need to see it, Ken?
Yeah, that kind of helps.
Okay, I didn't know if you were able to see it. Hold on, I didn't have it up for you. I thought you were just showing it to me. I didn't realize you actually wanted it up. I apologize.
Yeah, I don't use notes. I just
Okay, hold on one second.
add bigger.
I don't know if I can it'll take me too long to get the one that you sent me screenshotted. Hold on. But I can pull up the other one, and if it's a little off, you can let me know. Hold on.
Yeah, I don't know how to have it up on mine and have you up at the same time. I guess I can.
That's okay. I can get it up for you. I just need a second. Hold on.
Okay.
I paused your time. You're good. Let's see. Window. Okay. Go down to Elm Tree of Mastery. Okay. Okay. Now, let's see. Sorry about that. Screen share. There we go. Okay. So now, can you see it?
Yes.
If you click over mine, okay, you should be able to see it.
So these are the 3 PCA principles. The Elm Tree of Mastery, filling the emotional tank and honoring the game. If you will move to the next slide.
That's the video?
Yeah. Yes, please. And we could actually skip the video. I'm sure we will.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Are you ready? Is this good where I am?
No, will you go to the next slide?
Sure. This other video? And then that one?
Yeah, let's watch this video. And then would you move to the next slide?
Sure. This one here? It has the 2 columns?
Actually, it's not moving on the screen. It's still on the PCA principles.
Oh, it is? Huh, okay, hold on. It's moving on my end. It's still on the principles? It's not clicking ahead?
No.
Okay, sorry. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Is it moving now?
No.
I'm sorry, Ken.
Oh, that's okay. I should have told you.
Want to talk about it?
I don't know. It's moving on my end. I'm supposed to be screen sharing here, and it's supposed to be moving.
Oh, maybe it's just a delay. Well, I'll try to go off of memory here.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
What I can do is I can just make this really small.
If you take the Hangout, if you open it up, you can take the Hangout and make it, sometimes you can see them both at the same time. If you take the Hangout screen and kind of put it up in the corner and your PowerPoint's playing underneath of it, you can see it. That's what I'm trying to do for my screen share, and usually it works.
That's right. I will just, you can take it off there. I've just made the PowerPoint really small.
Okay.
And we can assume you can see it, even though you can't.
Can you see it?
I can see yours.
Okay.
But I've got mine open in the corner.
Okay. All right, as long as I don't need to see it. I've seen it before. As long as you can see it, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So we watched this video. Okay. Now let's move on to the next slide here. Let's see, which Olympic athletes earn the most medals? Those who focus on scoreboard and winning, or those who focus on mastering their sports and getting better? Just, what do you think? Hold up your fingers if you think it's one or two. Two. Thank you, Brendan. That's the right answer. Research has showed that by focusing on getting better and taking a mastery approach, that you actually have more success in winning medals than just worrying about the scoreboard. And we're going to explore a little bit why here. Now let's watch this video. Okay, now I'm going to show the video. So what are the similarities between these two coaches?
They're both very passionate.
Yes, they're both very passionate. They both want their teams to win very much. What else can you say about these two?
I don't remember the video.
Oh.
I think they're both proud. They're both proud of their team.
They're both proud. Okay, they both want to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What do you say the differences are?
I think the one's trying to motivate using fear, and the other one is using using passion to motivate his team and heart. Right.
That's right. One, would you say, is taking a scoreboard approach, and one's that the only thing that matters is the scoreboard, and the other one's taking the approach of a mastery approach, where, and let's just talk about the mastery approach a little bit. Let's look at the differences. So as we go to the next slide, the scoreboard definition focuses on results versus efforts. Well, the mastery definition is effort. A scoreboard definition is you're comparing yourself with others, because the only thing that matters is whether you win or lose, despite the circumstances. While a mastery definition is looking at learning. You're always learning, trying to get better. And a scoreboard definition talks about mistakes are not okay, because if you make a mistake, we lose the game. They score a point. Whatever happens, you make a mistake, we lose the game. While mastery definition says mistakes are okay. So let's just do a little demonstration here. And at this point, I'd probably use the demonstration that Ruben used in his, where he pulled somebody, a coach, out of the crowd. We talked about how we were going to have this player try to get by me in a football type scenario. But before we do it, I would say, okay, now your goal is to try to get over here. Okay, and I'm going to try to stop you. Okay? So, you ready? Mark, wait. Before we get started, though, I just want to ask you, I have to warn you that I have superhuman strength. Okay? You probably don't know that, but I got superhuman strength. So, okay? So, you ready? Let's get going. 1, 2, 3. But just so you know that you're going to lose. Now, what is it that you can control in this scenario? Can you control who you're going against? Brendan?
No.
No. Can you control the outcome?
No.
You can control, to a point, some of it. What is it you can control in this scenario?
Your effort?
Your effort. That's right. That's the only thing you can really control. You have full control of how hard you try. So let's just move on here a minute, thinking about that. So if you create this environment or this culture amongst your players, what is the mindset you want your players to have when a game starts? Anybody? What kind of mindset are you looking for?
I'm looking for their willingness to put in 100% effort and try.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you want, full effort. What else? When do players play their best?
Loose.
When they're loose. What does that mean?
Not tight, not worried about making mistakes.
Right, exactly. What about anxiety? What about confidence? Is that important?
Yeah, I want them to be confident.
Confident, full effort, ready to go for it, right? So which one of these approaches do you think gets your players in the best mindset to play?
I think mastery.
That's the right answer. That's right. So one of the things that studies have shown, studies also back this up, that a mastery approach also gets your players playing at the best possible level. Okay? Not only do players play the best, but it also gets the best results. All right? It's the indirect method here. So anxiety goes down, self-confidence goes up. And that's not just an opinion, that's backed by years of sports psychology research. This next slide also talks about what research shows, that if the mastery approach gives players a feeling of control, like you guys mentioned. If you can control your effort, you can't always control the outcome, the scoreboard, but you can't always control your effort, how hard you work. And mastery approach also shows from research that players will work harder and they'll stick to it longer, which is what you want. One of those life lessons we're trying to teach players is how to approach sports, how to approach games, how to approach challenges. Is work harder, stick to it longer, And one of the other big lessons is how to deal with mistakes, right? The mastery approach says what? That we're going to make mistakes, right? How many of your players are going to make mistakes the next time they play?
Hopefully not too many of them.
Not too many, but how many of them are going to make mistakes? Probably all of them, right?
Yeah.
Probably every game, right? And what's one of the great lessons we want to teach them?
How to overcome mistakes.
Exactly. That's one of the best lessons in sports. And so, that's one of the things of the mastery approach. By saying mistakes are okay, you give them that permission to make mistakes. And then how do you think that affects their attitude?
It helps them be loose and relax and have fun out there.
Play at their best. Now here's a scenario. Jesse hangs his head every time he misses his shot, and as a result doesn't get back on defense. What do you do as a coach? I want you guys, if I had a big group, I'd have you talk amongst yourselves or with another person and then get back to me. Excuse me. Okay, so what are some things you could do in this scenario?
I would try to keep Jesse in the game as long as I could, and just keep pumping him up from the sidelines and see if I can keep him in the game and get his focus back in. And if not, if he's still not focusing, if he's still not getting back on defense, I'll have to pull him out and talk to him.
Sure. What about you, Brendan?
Yeah, I think I would do a similar thing. I would try to give him some verbal feedback from the sidelines, with the hope that it would change. But if it didn't change, there'd have to be some consequences, and we'd have to talk through the impact of how defense relates to offense and how it affects the teammates. It's not just yourself. And hopefully change some behavior.
Right. Change that behavior. Change that attitude. And so part of that is setting the culture so that this type of scenario doesn't happen. You set the culture for mistakes, that you're going to make mistakes, and that communicating early and often on your team that mistakes happen, and the most important play is the next one, and how you deal with those mistakes. So one of the tools that we advocate here at PCA is called the mistake ritual. Now, if you watch some of these games coming up in March Madness, you'll see some of these college teams using mistake rituals. You may not even notice it. And what it is just a psychological thing, and it's just a motion where you can talk about introducing to your team how to, when they make a mistake, what to do about it. You use a motion like a flushing motion, or a forget about it, swipe it off, or shake it off motion. But what it is, it becomes a tool that you use amongst your teammates. So you tell each other when they do make a mistake, shake it off. Don't think about it. Because you want your team what? Thinking about what?
What's
The next play.
The next play. That's right. And so to help this is just a nice ritual to introduce, get them used to thinking about it and doing it. To come up with a sign that's your team uses to help players take that tack towards their mistakes. And that is the elm tree of the elm tree of.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Timing was
Not bad. I paused it while we were trying to do all the PowerPoint stuff, so
so did I.
it was under 20. It was a little under 20. Yeah, nice job. How'd you feel? I know physically you're not feeling 100%, but how'd you feel doing it that time? A little bit better?
Sure, yeah. I think it's actually harder to do it in this scenario than it would be in a workshop with a bunch of people.
No doubt. And that's why we try to get you out there as soon as we can. But it's also, this is a great opportunity for you to get some reps in, to just practice. Sometimes the hardest thing is just the words to say, the verbiage, how you would say things. A lot of times we know things in our head, but when we go to communicate them, they come out differently. So I think the few times that we've seen you do this, I think every time you've gotten smoother and smoother, just because you have the words are flowing out of you a little bit better and a little bit more consistently and a little more smoothly. Brendan, would you mind giving Kent some of your feedback? What did you think? What did you like? Is there anything that you think maybe was a little bit unclear that you'd like to see him improve on?
No, I mean it's different. Yeah, I agree. When I can't see the slides, so I think when I'm watching, obviously there's a visual cue that goes along with what you're saying, but you've got a really good timing when you present. I think when I work with students on presenting all the time, and I think one of the hardest things to teach someone is to balance the enthusiasm with the timing. Sometimes when they have too much enthusiasm, they talk too quickly, and sometimes they don't have enough. They talk slowly and clearly, but you almost want to fall asleep. You have a good job of both. I can tell that you're into it, but at the same time, there's enough time in between your comments to understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I really like that. I think that's a strength I don't have, and one that I try to teach my students, but you have it mastered already.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. I put that down too. I thought your pace was much better this time. I thought you did a good job at sort of mixing up the pace, and you got through the material, I think, at a better pace. I really like, again, I like the questions. You have good questions. You know, it's simple. It sounds so simple to say, why do I coach? But it's a huge question. And we use some videos in our workshop from Joe Ehrman, and we have a whole like 3-minute video clip of Joe Ehrman talking to coaches, saying, think about why do you coach? Why are you in it? There you go. Exactly. And it's a simple question that a lot of coaches don't think about. Why do I coach? Why am I doing this? Why am I here?
Yeah.
And I don't think you'll ever get an answer from a coach that says, because I need to win the championship with my 7-year-old hockey players. You know, they don't usually think like that, yet that's how they're coaching. So your questions were very strong. Some of the questions I wrote down that I loved, I would have liked to see you pull more answers. Not necessarily pull more answers out of the audience, because it's just Brendan and I, but you know, challenge a little bit more. You know, go a little bit deeper. I saw you do that at the one point with Brendan. You said, you know, well, tell me more about loose. What does that mean? When you ask a question to an audience and you can follow up and challenge the person that brought it in, that connects them. Like Brendan's all of a sudden like, oh, okay, wait, now I'm involved in this. So yeah, I mean, it really does. It indirectly cuts down from like kind of superficial answers. When the people in the audience know that you're really listening to them, they're going to give you better quality answers. So the one thing you brought up, the fact that parents, I love that. Again, I told you that before. I love the fact that you're talking about the goals of the people involved in this drama of youth sports and the goals. Even last time I think you brought up the difference between the goal of mom versus the goal of dad. I thought that was really funny when you brought that up last time, that mom and dad have 2 different goals for their child. But when you talk about the goal of kids being fun, which is true, you might even want to throw in, we often quote the 2008 Michigan State study, where 70% of the kids are dropping out of sports by the age of 13, and the #1 reason is they're not having fun anymore. Wow. So that across the board is the reason most kids are playing, and if we as coaches aren't bringing that element of fun and surprise and challenge into it, you're going to lose them at any level, not just at the peewee level. So I just wanted to add that in for you. I kind of like the way, too, that you just kind of leave the video open for discussion. A lot of trainers go into so much detail about the video, like this is what this coach is doing and this is what that coach is doing. I think it's a great, just to keep it simple and say, what do you notice? What's similar about these two? What's different about these two? The one thing you did do is you introduced the term scoreboard and mastery focus before we really knew what that was. So just caution about that, because if you say like, oh yeah, the one's focused is a scoreboard focused coach and the one's a mastery focused coach, it might be a little bit confusing to someone that doesn't know what those two concepts are yet. But if you just said, what is the first coach focusing on solely? You could say the scoreboard and winning. What is the second coach focusing on? Well, he's focusing on their heart, their effort, that type of thing. So that was just a little tip. I liked your demo with you having the superhuman strength. I thought that was cute. That was funny. It's a good visual. I would even go one step further. You focused on effort, that Brendan, could control his effort in getting by you or whoever the person was. Also, you can control the learning and you can control the mistakes. So you could actually do the whole elm tree with that one scenario. Because, if there's somebody smaller up against somebody with like you that has superhuman strength, they're going to make mistakes. And they're going to try again, and they're going to try again. So I would even take that scenario and frame it in terms of all 3 levels, elm tree. I think that would work really well too. And again, I like bringing in current things. I think anytime a trainer can bring in something current, and the fact that you said, watch March Madness, see if you notice mistake rituals. Dan Orion is also in this course, and he actually pulled in a video clip of, I think it's Butler University. I can't remember which team it was, but there was, it was the end of the game. One of the guys was on the foul line, and it's one of those times where there was nobody in the key with him. He was just on there all by himself, and he missed the first shot, and he went around and air high-fived everybody. and he did that in his workshop, and I thought that's really cool. And he noticed that he made a mistake. He needed his tank filled up, so he just went around and went like this to nobody that was in with him. So I thought that's anytime you can use anything current, I think that's great. So, Ruben, I don't know if you can hear us or you're able to comment. Ruben's on a train right now, so he's just listening usually.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah, exactly. Are you able, Ruben, to comment or not so much?
Shake your hand.
I know, exactly. Shake your picture. All right, I'm going to assume that means not so much. All right. Okay, I guess he can't. All right, well, we will. If he tunes in, we'll have some feedback from him later on that. But Ken, I think you did a nice job, and I appreciate you doing this when you're a little under the weather.
That's all right. Got to rally.
Good call with standing up too. That's a really smart idea.
You're welcome to stand up.
There's something about sitting down and presenting that just feels a little strange.
Yeah.
You're welcome to stand up. We don't mind.
No. I teach an online program, but I'm somewhat used to it. But I don't want to mess with it now because my monitor is it'd be kind of fragile.
Okay. Oh, there's Ruben. Did you want to say anything, Ruben, about Kent?
I really, I really don't have anything to add, so I don't think I will.
Okay. Thanks for jumping in. All right, Brendan, you are up.
I'm up.
You're up.
I'm going to start my clock too so I can see it.
Okay, that's fine. So we would have introduced you at the workshop.
Okay. And one of the introduction, like how much, should I give a little background? I know that some of the other presenters gave a little bit of background as to why they're there.
I think it's nice. It's nice. I like to see what you would do at the beginning of a workshop.
Okay.
Because we used to do this where you just jump right into the principal, and then we find actually the first 5 minutes of the workshop are kind of difficult because you have to, you really have to capture the audience's attention. So I'd like to know, what would your story be? How would you get the audience connected and all that? So I'd love to see it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm starting.
Yep. Whenever you're ready, go.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. I have 3 visitors, 3 guests. That's great, and I understand that takes time, so I appreciate you being here. My name is Brendan Dwyer. I am an associate professor at Virginia Commonwealth University. I teach in the Center for Sport Leadership. So I'm going to be talking for the next hour or so about the PCA, Positive Coaching Alliance, and the role of double goal coaching. Before we get started, I got a couple questions for you, and I think I know the answers to a couple, but Kelly, you coach lacrosse, correct?
Right now I do, yep.
And Kent, what sport do you coach or have you coached?
Mostly soccer.
Mostly soccer. Okay. That's good. Well, I'm probably refer to that as we go along. But the first thing I want you guys to do, if you have a pen and paper, it would be great. I want you to write down the best coach you ever had and the worst coach you ever had. I'd like you to write down their name and then what it was that made them good or what it was that made them bad. And then I'd also like you to write down, as a coach, what do you take with you or don't take with you because of that person. So who the coach's name was, what it was that made them good or what it was that made them bad, and what you take with them now. Or you don't take with them. So I'll give the audience a little bit of time to do so.
Huh.
Ken is getting a workout as we do that.
Yeah, I had to go get a pencil. I don't want you to think I abandoned you.
Yeah, that's all right.
Give you a tour of my house.
Okay, so while you continue to do that, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on myself so you know how I view the world. I'm a former coach. I don't coach now. I'm a full-time faculty member. But I used to coach youth hockey. Concurrently, I coached high school football, and then for 3 years I coached collegiate football. I coached football at the University of Wisconsin Lacrosse, which is a larger Division III program, and then I coached football at a small FCS program, the University of Northern Colorado. Before giving coaching life up, sadly, as I was finishing my PhD. I now work in a master's program and a PhD program at VCU. It's a sport leadership program. Our students, both in an online and an on-campus format, are coaches or want to be coaches as well as sport administrators. I teach the Foundations of Coaching class, so I teach very similar concepts. I also teach sports sociology, sport consumer behavior, issues in college athletics, a lot of very similar topics to what the PCA model is. I heard the PCA philosophy at a conference in Washington, D.C. I've also read the books of Joe Ehrman. We've had him come speak to our students, and we also had Jack Clark come speak to our students a few years ago. And I started to put the dots together and understand that their connections to this group, and there was kind of a natural tie. I kind of see myself as a social constructionist as well, and I see some of the issues that we have in youth sports, interscholastic sports. And while I have a platform already with master students, I thought, what the Positive Coaching Alliance really provides an opportunity to reach more people. I think the message that they've created, the message that they're spreading, the message I hope to give to you here today, really has an opportunity to impact lives and positively. So that's one of the reasons I've gotten involved, and one of the reasons I'm here today. Any questions on my background before we get going? Okay, well, I don't need to give you, Kelly, you don't need to give me the name of your best coach, but can you tell me what it was about the best coach that made him or her so good?
She was my highest level coach. So this is my Division I college field hockey coach, and I expected her to be really tough right off the bat, and I was really nervous and anxious. And she just really cared about us, and the first week of preseason, she spent almost half the practice with us doing team bonding things and getting to know us as people, and just getting to know about us. And we did a lot of fun things, which I wasn't expecting starting a Division I college sport. And just throughout my 4 years of college, it was very obvious that she cared more about us as people than she did about us as players.
Good.
Awesome.
Ken, I'm going to go to the opposite. I'm going to go, what was the coach? They don't have to necessarily be a bad coach, but what was the worst coach you ever had? Don't need the person's name, but what made this individual not be successful in your mind?
I was my coach when I was about 19, soccer coach. He was just kind of a jerk. He just had created a climate on the team. There was a lot of antagonistic climate on the team, and just wasn't fun to play with him.
Good. So what I would do at this point, I would obviously go around the round. We get examples of what they're taking with them as coaches. What were the positive? There's almost every time I've done this activity, there's clearly a theme that it's not about the person's lack of knowledge or the person's inability to coach the sport. It's always been, as things you guys mentioned, their ability to motivate, their ability to lead people, to bring people together. So that leads to my segue, which would be the next slide, which is, how do you want to be remembered as a coach? We just heard a bunch of examples of positives and negatives. And every single time you spend time with a young person, an athlete, it's an opportunity to make a positive impact. Every time. And you can be positive or it can be negative. You can be positively contributing to that individual's growth and development. You can also do negatively doing it. And you have to think about how you want to be remembered. We had Kevin Eastman come speak to our students a few years ago. He's former assistant coach, former head coach in the NBA. Now, I think he's with the LA Clippers, was with the Clippers. But he spoke about when it's all said and done as an individual, at your gravestone, it says, from the day you were born to the day you died. And he focused on that dash in between. And that's what matters the most. What did you accomplish? What happened? Who were you able to impact during that dash? Because that dash tells us how we're celebrated as individuals and the impact that we've made. And as a coach, you have an unbelievable opportunity to make a positive impact if you do it properly. And I think a lot of coaches, if you ask them why they got involved, it's not necessarily because they wanted to win championships or win games. It's because they wanted to have an impact on people. They wanted to positively impact young people. Unfortunately, it's not that simple for coaches these days. We work in a very, very difficult climate as coaches. Both interscholastically and youth, coaches wear hundreds of hats. They have hundreds of job titles. They're a supervisor, a motivator, a mentor. They have to be a teacher. They have to be a liaison between parents. They have to be a negotiator, a moderator. I could keep going on. They have to be an expert technician. I mean, parents want their kids coached by former Olympians. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you also have to win a bunch of games. And everyone has to play, and you're probably going to make right around minimum wage or less than that. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy, yeah, if you're making that, it's true. It's not an easy profession to work in. And so you really truly have to be passionate about why you're doing this. So over the course of the next hour, I plan to walk through the PCA model with you to hopefully provide a guide or a framework to how you can be successful at both these things. You can be successful with both on-field success and also the most important aspect of developing individuals along the way. It provides specific actions. It provides roles, tools to be successful. It's not only practical, which I think is important, it's also aspirational. It's what we want our kids to go through, or we want our friends and family to go through if they were in youth sports all over again. Most importantly, it provides a roadmap to deal with all of the challenges that currently exist in coaching. So part of that, and I'd be showing an agenda what we're going to talk about. But the model, the guiding principles, the tree of mastery, which Kent did for us, filling the emotional tank, and then one that I'm going to do, which was honoring the game.
All right.
So unsmooth segue to honoring the game. So the previous couple of principles really talked about strategies and tactics that coaches can use to help be successful. I think honoring the game is the most important one, and this is the third principle, because it really does get to the dual purpose that we serve as coaches in the 21st century. This principle is your chance to be a change agent, and that's not necessarily through what you do on the field or with your athletes, but really through your actions in increasing civility and citizenship in our society. It's bigger than sportsmanship. It's not so much about sportsmanship as what you shouldn't do. Don't throw your helmet. Don't get a set. It's about what you can do or what you should do and what a person could do if they did all things correctly. If I had a 4 quarters, it would be 3 quarters modeling, 1 quarter police officer. It's so much about who you are and what you do as a coach, as opposed to more of the monitoring and supervising aspect of coaching. And I'll be going to the next PowerPoint slide of the ROOTS acronym. It's really broken down for the PCA into these 5 topics. ROOTS, which stands for rules, opponents, officials, teammates, and self. And I'll go through each one of these, starting with rules. And honestly, they're not in any particular order, except for that they do create an acronym. So it's not like the rules are most important. They each are important in their own way. But the first one is rules. And I think as a coach, this is one of the most important ones because you really do have to take a stand. Rules, obviously, and rules come in all forms and fashions. It's pretty obvious, from lacrosse and from soccer that there are a number of rules that dictate how games flow. And if you cheat and you break those rules, there are consequences. There are consequences not just in the game, but there's consequences in society. Cheating, perceived socially, is negative. Gamesmanship is a different term that, by pure definition, is also cheating, but it's viewed socially as being acceptable. Can you give me an example, Kelly, in lacrosse where gamesmanship can be viewed as can be done in a game that can give you a competitive advantage that may technically be outside the rules?
I would say for lacrosse, the biggest would be checking. Very effective, strong checking that sort of teeter-totters on dangerous.
Yep.
But if you do it well and you do it quick enough and you get the ball and run down the field, then you might not get called for it.
Okay. How about in soccer, Kent?
Feigning an injury.
That's a perfect one. That's a perfect example. In our society, and especially in sports, there's a belief that, we've probably heard the saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And once again, they're using that cheating mantra or the cheating language, but the truth is that part of our society accepts the fact that we break the rules. And even if it's just small rules here or there, coaches need to take a stand on this. And the PCA's belief through the ROOTS acronym and through rules in particular is that you have an opportunity to teach people the right way to win, the right way to go about playing. And that it's not about the outcome, it's about the process. And the coach has the most direct control over this because they set the culture. They create the consequences and validate those consequences. There's not a rule book big enough, and the NCAA tries, that can encompass all these gamesmanship attributes. So it really does come down to a coach making the decision that, winning is something that we may shoot for, but we're going to win the right way. And we're going to try to teach a life lesson at the same time, something that transcends sport, that can overflow into corporate greed or academic cheating and even relationships, that cheating is not acceptable, that shortcuts aren't the path to take through life. You need to respect the process, and coaches can be the best model of this. They don't bend the rules to their advantage, which sometimes can be difficult because sometimes as coaches, we were successful as players by doing that. You have to understand that as a coach, you have a different responsibility. And making that challenge or taking that challenge on that you are going to do what's best and what's right despite of the outcomes is the first step to doing that. The next one is opponents. You need to respect opponents. I think this one is the hardest one for the athletes. I think, once again, a coach can be a model, and I'll get to that in a second. But athletes need to understand and need to learn that a worthy opponent makes them better. Ultimately, athletes want to be better at their craft. They want to be the best athlete, the best person they can be. Sometimes they lose track of that by focusing too much on the scoreboard, as we talked about, or focusing on the winning or the outcomes as opposed to getting better. Opponents can help get them better. And as a coach, you have the opportunity to teach them that the best competition will bring out the best in the athlete. But you need to respect your opponent. That doesn't mean you don't have to try hard. You don't have to. And I coach hockey and football, two very violent sports. I go into a corner with someone as in hockey. I have very violent intentions. That doesn't mean I don't respect the person, respect the opponent. I'll knock them down, but I'll help them back up if they're injured. You have to respect the player more, respect the person no matter what. And that's something that I think coaches can model by the way they interact with opposing coaches, the way they interact with opposing players, opposing parents, and obviously providing consequences when they see their athletes doing something disrespectful. Respect is another key word as we talk about the third letter, which is officials. There's a lot of research on this. There's a lot of research that, coaches are going to, two coaches on a different team are going to see the exact same play, and they're going to see the outcomes and the fouls benefit their team the most. They've done it with fans as well. They'll take two, and it's essentially a bias, where regardless of what we see, we're biased to look as what happened as being beneficial to our team or detrimental to the other team. And so if you think about all the judgment calls referees have to make in the sport that you coach, you have to understand that you're biased automatically. That you go into the situation with a bias, and that regardless of what that ref does, they're going to be wrong, either from your side or for the other team's side. So you have to going into a game and going into a sporting competition that you are not going to get along with the ref because you are fundamentally going to disagree with some of the decisions they make. That's fine as long as you respect that individual and respect that they have the right to make their decision and the respect that they have authority. Coaches and their interactions with referees are so important, hugely important, to not just setting the tone for the athletes, but setting the tone for the parents and other stakeholders involved. Your interactions with referees, you may disagree, you may argue, but you need to do it respectfully. And you need to do it in a tone that your athletes are going to reciprocate. Because we can yell and say, "Don't do what I do. Don't yell at the refs. Only I can do that." The truth is, the players are going to reciprocate what they see from you. And so, once again, from a modeling standpoint, your relationship with an official is hugely important. The next acronym word is teammates. Think of athletes need to think about how their actions impact their entire team. I think players sometimes understand this more. It doesn't mean it's easy. I think one of the hardest jobs a coach has to do is getting an athlete to focus on we as opposed to me. And buying into the process, buying into that the sum of all of our parts is stronger than the individual. And that is, once again, can be modeled through coaching, through your interactions with your staff. If you have assistant coaches, if you have parents that work with you, how you interact with those individuals, the respect, the autonomy, the authority you give them will model how athletes will respect each other. And then lastly is self. I think this probably is the most important one, because without self-respect, self-confidence, respect for yourself, you can't expect anyone to respect you. So much is built upon how you believe, what you believe in yourself. That means taking care of yourself, getting sleep, eating properly, getting exercise, taking time away to think, and making sure that you are at your best. I think I've seen coaches run themselves into the ground. I see it at the college level all the time, but it's happening more at the youth level too, where they're sacrificing themselves. There's certainly a level of self-sacrifice in coaching, but it shouldn't be at such a detriment that you are actually harming yourself, because if the player's not, they don't see that you are respecting yourself, once again, how are they supposed to respect you? So those are the main aspects. We'd go back to the good coach, bad coach, and I would talk about I'd ask the audience to bring up their good coach and bad coach, and talk about, give me an example of knowing those 5 words and that acronym of example of one of your good coach and what they did as it relates to opponents. What do they do? How they relate to the referees? Bad coach, what are the same things? And once again, from my experience, it's pretty obvious that the good coaches either did one or all of those things really well, and the bad coaches at least violated one. Chances are violated all of those tenets. So we talk about that in the group situation. And then lastly, I'm running out of time. Would talk about culture. I transition into the culture aspect and how that principle relates directly into culture.
Okay. You have an extra 2 minutes. I'd love to hear what you would say.
Oh, sweet. Oh, okay. So culture is a fascinating topic and how it relates to coaches. If you look up a definition, if you were to go to Google and look up, for those of you that are on your computers right now, is what I say to my students, Google culture, and the definition comes up with shared knowledge, shared values, so on and so forth. Well, at the PCA, we define it as the way we do things here. And it's not so much in the coaching context about shared knowledge and shared values as it is what we tolerate from actions and, honestly, how we operate. Not necessarily the outcomes, but the process. The way in which we do things from our team and what we accept both on the field and off the field, from our players, from our parents, from our coaches, that is the culture. And, that's, to expand on that a little bit, and I think it's easier said than done, and I can't undersell or oversell how important culture is. Peter Drucker said a long time ago that, if you had 2 teams or 2 organizations and one focused only on culture and one focused only on strategy, that culture would eat strategy for lunch every day of the week. I wouldn't say that culture can necessarily overcome a talent disparity, but so oftentimes coaches get so focused on the strategy, the X's and O's, the tactics, the techniques, that they forget the fact that building the team, building the culture, managing the culture, maintaining the culture, increasing or enhancing the culture will eat that strategy for lunch every day of the week. So just 3 quick things that I try to do as a coach to build culture, to build it a positive culture and a negative culture. The first thing is consistency in action and consistency in message. Making sure that what you say and what you do is consistent. Athletes need consistency. They love structure. They fight it sometimes, but they need it. And so much of your actions, whether they're consistent or not, and the message that you created goes to building that culture. Second, having clear expectations and clear consequences. Speaks to the consistency aspect, but also sets expectations. And lastly is honest communication. Sometimes brutally honest communication, especially when you're dealing with parents, especially when you're dealing with athletes. And there's a lot, all through this presentation, we talked about ways in providing feedback, but you need to be honest with your athletes. You can't sugarcoat it. Sometimes you need to provide, that doesn't mean you can't be constructive and be positive, but sometimes you have to tell them what the situation is to earn their respect and to build that culture and for them to trust you. I get it, that's a lot. I covered a lot of stuff, a lot of information in 20 minutes or 50 minutes, and I understand that hopefully you take 2 or 3 of these things into something you can implement tomorrow when you're coaching or the next day. The rest of it, I'm going to leave this information with you. I'm going to provide more opportunities to connect with the PCA, connect with myself. Then if you have more questions, you can follow up. I encourage you as individuals to take the time to learn and grow and get better. Learn from your mistakes. The same thing that we tell our athletes. Grow, get better, learn from your mistakes. We have to do as well as coaches. If we don't do it, how can we expect our athletes to do it? The fact that you're at this presentation means you're taking a huge first step, and you have to keep reminding yourselves that every time you interact with a young person, it's an opportunity to positively impact them. And if you don't, you're wasting an opportunity. But that means you have to be prepared and you have to be ready to do so. That's it.
All right. That was a lot. I always say sometimes, I sit here as a lead trainer and I have to be giving you feedback and evaluating.
Yeah.
And half the time I'm just stealing. So 3 pages of notes of like, oh, that was good. Oh, I like that. Oh, let me write that down. And then halfway through I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to be like evaluating Brendan, not stealing all of his information. So you got me caught up in your workshop, and I really thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I had to write so I was going through this, obviously, and looking at previous examples. There are some great people that went through and did this already.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying not to stealing their ideas at the same time. But we're all kind of going off the same playbook, and so I'm trying to add something new. And do you know Craig Escherick at George Mason?
No.
Okay, he works in their sport management. He just asked us to write a book on team dynamics, a book chapter. And so I had to write an entire half a chapter on culture. So I started writing out my notes for this, and before I knew it, I had 4 pages of information. And I'm like, I can't get 4 pages into 20 minutes, so I have a feeling I'm going to be rushed. So I apologize if I flew through some of this stuff. When I do the good coach, bad coach activity, generally it is a little bit more interactive because it's usually a bigger group, and I spend more time for them talking about their good, positive and negative experiences.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't have a doubt that you would make it interactive, and I think because you do what you do and you're used to reading the crowd and seeing the faces of the people in your audience, I think you have the wherewithal to say, wait, I need to get them up, I need to get them doing something. The one thing though, little tiny detail right off the top before I give you some other feedback. One of the things you said multiple times was presentation, and it's intentional that we call them workshops.
Oh.
Because a presentation is literally like presenting material, and you all have to learn it.
Yeah.
And we really do want these to be more of a workshop where the coaches are rolling up their sleeves and struggling with these and thinking of examples. So I just wanted to point that out real quick because people do that. I mean, they say presentations. So it's intentional that we do call them workshops.
Makes sense.
But, yeah. Ken, before I go, how about you? Do you want to give some feedback to Brendan?
Yeah, you had a lot of good information. I was writing down some good stuff. I like the way you talked with confidence and authority. It made me want to listen to everything you were saying. It's just your whole tone and what you were talking about. Maybe the only thing I would say is maybe find some examples or more questions of, I was coaching this team and this is to make some points about officials or opponents or.
Yeah, and I rushed through those. My introduction went a lot longer than I was expecting. So once again, I think it's why you make us do that. I had to kind of rush through my acronym to get to the culture aspect. So I would have tried to weave some more stories into it. It's a very good point, Ken.
Yeah, one of the things that I find in the hundreds of times I've done this with new people, new trainers, is that every single person that wants to be a PCA trainer is so passionate. And any of us could probably talk for 8 hours on the subject. And the most difficult thing is taking all of our passion, all of our stories, all of our examples, all of our research, and putting it into a 90-minute block and making it you talked about the hundreds of hats you wear as a coach. I mean, the hundreds of hats you wear as a trainer is trying to be facilitator, engager, comedian, educator, all the things that we try to do, yet the bottom line is we just want these coaches to passionately understand how important this is. Yeah. And that's why, I hate the fact that I time people when they do this.
Well, I do to my students all the time.
But it's really important, because as you said, all of a sudden you're like, wow, my intro just went 8 minutes long, and I thought it was going to take 3. Yeah. So, sometimes we get so wrapped up in our own thing, and the first time I was timed, and I thought, oh, I've got this quick story, and the person that was watching me go, your quick story took 6 minutes. I'm like, really? No way. So it is good. Brendan, I just loved it. I think the really cool thing about you is that you do this for a living. And there's so many people that are, you're an accountant or you're a whatever you do, and you're a coach, and now you're a PCA trainer. So you're living this. And I think, again, as Kent said, that's your magic. That's your secret weapon, is that you're doing this on a professional level. And I think it was really cool that you brought out that, you're doing this every day to students. And what a reach you have being able to bring this out into the community and share all of this. So again, I think I agree with Ken. I mean, I was hanging on to so many words you were saying, especially just mentioning like, oh yeah, and there's research to back this up. And I know there is research because you're Dr. Dwyer and this is what you do. So I don't even think, so many times I say if somebody's going to mention research, and you might want to mention where it comes from if you are a high school biology teacher. And you're doing PCA workshops. But for you to do what you do and say, there are studies to back this up, I'm like, I bet there is, and I bet you've read them, and I bet you could tell me what they are. So I thought that was really, it's really powerful for you to be able to do this. A lot of things I really loved. I like it when people write down things. That's just multiple intelligences. I think it's really awesome to get people to think first and then share, rather than just popcorn sharing. And I know that's probably a strategy that you use. It actually made me think. I've been asked a lot of times who's my most influential coach. I've never been asked to write down the negative experience coach that I have. And it's funny, as I said, I've done this 100 times. It's the first time I wrote down like Dave Baker, and he was the coach I had, and why, and what will you not take with you? And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And I purposely make sure that my Dave Baker would do this all the time while we were playing basketball, constantly shaking his head. And that's something like whenever I coach, I make sure I never shake my head, no matter what. And so I thought that was a really good lesson. I'll be done in a couple minutes, okay? Yeah. I know. I'm gonna go see her. Okay. Sorry, my family's all coming home from school now. The one tip that somebody had, and I thought this was really cool since you're doing it. There was a trainer, Hank Lewis, out in Colorado, and he asked a similar question, and he said, "Who is your mentor, coach, and who is your tour mentor?" And I thought that was just a really good play on words that I thought you might want to steal, because I thought that was very cool.
I like that.
Yeah. I love the fact that you said, you were just talking a lot about the impact that coaches have, and I think it's really crucial to bring up that you will impact the players you coach one way or the other. So, whether it's a negative impact, you are impacting those people. And a lot of times, a lot of trainers say, like, I want you to realize the impact you have, which is different than saying you will be impacting them. Think about how you want to do it. So I thought that was your choice of words on that was great. Bringing in, the dash. I actually heard that at a funeral recently.
Oh, really?
That was the eulogy at the funeral. Was talking about the dash of the person that died, and said, "Let me tell you about the dash." So that was only the second time I've ever heard that, but I thought that was really cool too. Love the 100 minutes. I think that is so important. I want to use that at the next parent workshop. I mean, I think parents need to hear that. All the expectations, and Kent touches on it by saying the goals of dad are different than the goals of mom, and they're different than the goals of kids. But when you actually think about all the hats as a coach, negotiator, teacher, organizer, all the stuff, and you have to win besides that, like, come on. So I thought that was really awesome too. What else? There's so many good things, so many things I loved. The way you described sportsmanship, and that this is what you should do. Oh, the quarter, I know what it was. The 3/4 modeling and the 1/4 police officer. Again, that's a nugget. I mean, I call it R&D, not research and development, but rip off and duplicate. I mean, I hope I have your permission to steal that, because I think that's a great visual there for honoring the game, because you really made it very clear. Modeling is the most important thing, and telling somebody that modeling is important, and really just getting that visual. 3/4 modeling, 1/4 police officer. The fact that you still put in there, you do have to be police officer.
Yeah.
We're not telling you to just totally model. You do have to come down hard sometimes, and you even said that in your three, your summary at the end: consistency in action, consistency in message, clear expectations, clear consequences, and be honest. The one thing that, as Kent said, the one thing I would like to hear you do is give some more examples, some actual examples from sports, because I have a question come up a lot. Your number 2 was clear expectations and clear consequences, and when you're talking about consequences and you're talking about police officering, if that's a word, what does PCA believe are appropriate consequences when one of these areas of honoring the game is violated? And it brings up a good debate about, running as punishment. I get that question a lot in workshops. So how would you answer a question like that if I said, what type of consequences are you talking about if a player on my team at practice is totally disrespecting his teammate? What would you do?
Yeah, that's true. I should have brought up some more examples related to that. I think, from my perspective, when you talk about disrespecting, and whether it's teammates related, oftentimes I try to have a conversation between the kids involved, for sure. to make sure they understand what they did and how it impacted the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I also understand that it isn't about, well, as a coach you have the opportunity to levy some sort of consequence related to that. Now, it's not going to be necessarily go run 6 laps or do 20 push-ups or whatever it is, but that there are consequences that might be related to playing time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that is violating the PCA model or not, to be honest with you. But I do think that as a coach, you have some authority to make sure that players understand that there are consequences when they do things incorrectly.
Well, let me ask you, if you were going to be talking about like the PCA model,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be putting in the players that are focusing on mastery, the
Mm-hmm.
players that are filling each other's tanks,
Yeah.
and the players that are honoring the game,
Yeah.
and they do something that's disrespectful of a teammate, should that affect their playing time?
Yes.
Yes. So, you answered your own question right there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're clear with your expectations,
Yes.
then yeah, the best shooter on the team is
Mhm.
not going to get playing time.
Mhm.
And if somebody has a problem with it, here's why.
Yeah. And I think
He's bringing down the people around him, not building him up.
Yeah, I think that the example I had written down to go along with if I had the time to go through it, was talking about oftentimes the most talented player all the athletes know, and you can't treat that player special. It's one of the hardest things for coaches to do,
Yeah.
especially when they understand how important that player is to the outcome of their games.
Mm-hmm.
So coaches have to be consistent with everyone, especially as it relates to consequences. Coaching football, it's so hard to treat the kicker the same way you treat your quarterback. It's so hard to do that because they have totally different functions. One is so dependent on your outcome. The other one you only need for like 30 seconds at the end of a game.
Right.
But you have to treat them the same. If they violate the same rules, those consequences have to be consistent.
Absolutely. And one of the things I like to bring up with culture, too, is that if you are consistent in your message, the more consistent you are with your message, the easier your job will be.
Yeah.
Because your consistent message is going to be part of your culture, and the kids aren't going to question it. And I mean, I used a silly example that it just happened again. We had our first. I'm coaching 3rd and 4th grade lacrosse for the first time. I haven't coached that young in a long time. And I blew the whistle, and the girls came over, and the first 2 girls, 8-year-old girls, were literally beating each other up to get first in line.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, praise the effort, love what they're doing, but you don't beat up your teammate because you're trying to get in line first because I blew the whistle.
Yeah.
So I said to the girls, and I literally did. I said, the way we do things on this team is you would, of course, let Ashley go in front of you because she's your teammate, and you're really looking out for her.
Yeah.
And, maybe you have trouble with that. Then I get to put you at the end of the line and you get to go last. How does that sound? And she was like, that's a consequence. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be like go run 10 laps, as you said.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought that was great. I thought you did a nice job at going through roots. I'd like to see a little bit more interaction while you're going through that definition rather than just waiting at the end. Sometimes conversational, sometimes turn to somebody next to you and talk about, why are rules, not necessarily why are rules important, because that's kind of a rhetorical question. A lot of trainers do that, and I'm like, well, we all know why rules are important. I don't think you asked any rhetorical questions, which I think is great. I think it's great that you asked intentional questions. But it was a long portion of information. It was probably like, 10 minutes of just explaining them, and there wasn't a whole lot of interaction. So, maybe find a way, look for an opportunity to work in something like that. For example, the cheating versus gamesmanship. I mean, there is an awesome opportunity for discussion right there. I think just that whole idea of gamesmanship is great.
Yeah, I like that too.
That was one I would have done longer if I had more time. The other thing is I was actually going to have you guys give me the modeling behavior.
Mm.
So I was going to give the first model behavior for rules, and then I was going to have you, for opponents, how can I as a coach model good opponent behavior?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the interactive. But once again, that was the idea.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. I mean, you have so many ideas, and that's the tough part is picking and choosing which one to use at the right time because you can't do all of them.
Yeah.
And I thought you really, the other thing I put down, I thought you did a really nice balance because the idea of honoring the game is balancing yourself. Like you brought up, as coaches, we need to take care of ourselves. So you've got the coach's aspect of honoring the game, and then you've got how are you modeling it to your team. So there's 2 totally different sides, and I thought you did a nice job at balancing those out. The research bias, again, permission, just because I think that you just really put that very, very well. I've heard some other trainers say, when an official makes a call, 50% of the crowd is going to think it's wrong.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the book.
What'd you say?
I'm trying to find the book where I got that.
Oh.
called a book called Influence. It's actually really
The
fascinating.
influence, okay. But I mean, just as simply as you put it, it makes so much sense. And just saying you're going to be biased. It's going to make sense. They've studied fans, they've studied parents. Like that to me is so clear that of course not everybody's going to be happy with the ref's call because you're biased one way or the other. So I thought that was really great too. And again, I've never heard anybody really talk about the idea as a coach, all the sacrifices we make as a coach. I think that's a really great way to appreciate the coaches that are there. And to say, I've seen coaches, and I've said before, some of the best coaches I've ever had were not married and had no kids. Why? Because they don't have a life other than this. So how do we, as coaches that have families, have lives, a lot of us have jobs, how do we pour our hearts into the time we're there without burning the candle at both ends, to the point where we show up at practice and we're just like done? Mm-hmm. How do we get our tanks filled? And I think you did a nice job at bringing that in. And then again, I think, what else did I put down? Oh, you said about Jim Thompson uses that a lot, that culture eats strategy. He says culture eats strategy for breakfast. You said, Peter Drucker says, I would just, whenever I name drop, I always say who they are.
Okay.
So, Peter Drucker, I don't even know who Peter Drucker is actually, because I've always heard that quote, never knew who said it. So
I had to do, because when I was writing that book chapter, I had to actually look to see who actually came up with that first. So Peter Drucker, I can't remember exactly what he does. I think he's a strategist somewhere.
He's a business guru.
Yeah,
Okay.
A writer.
Okay, good. But I always think it's important, especially in this industry. A lot of trainers name drop, like this player or that player. This guy, and John Wooden, and Kevin Eastman, and and I always just say just 2 seconds. Coach of UCLA, 17 national championships, whatever it is, just to make sure everybody's on the same page and knows who you're talking about. But I'm really encouraged, Brendan. I thought that was really a great job for us to see you the first time out. I'm really impressed. You did a great job.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, Ruben, did you want to weigh in here?
I did. You got my signal there, huh? So Brendan, a couple things. First of all this that we're talking about now is great to have in your equipment bag when you show up at a workshop. You're going to pull out 1/10 of what we're talking about here in any one given workshop.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you say, I plan to do this and I plan to do that, and that's good. That's good. That's in your equipment bag, but you're not going to do it all in a workshop. Yeah. And as you do pare down, as you work on paring down, Brendan, pare down the information that you're giving out. Don't pare down the interactivity, the questions you're asking the group. Yeah. What Kent said, make sure that there's, sprinkled in, not constantly, but sprinkled in one or two specific examples from your own coaching or what you've observed in your years around college athletics. Okay?
Yep.
So a couple questions for you and the group. Who can finish this sentence? It's a 3-word sentence. I'm going to give you the 2 first words. You give me the last word. Again, the sentence is, less is
more.
Okay, all right. So Brendan, okay, you're all over it, Brendan. Brendan, when you teach a class at the university, how much in an hour or 2 hours that you spend with the students, how much do you expect them to absorb and take with them? How would you answer that question?
Oh gosh, I say if they can take one thing away from the entire semester, I'd be happy. I'm not joking.
Okay, so okay, so Brendan, you get the point. Is that we can hit them with all this stuff and this quote and that research and but what are they going to take with them? It's only a few things, and what we want to do is make sure they take away what those 2 things are the things we want them to take away with. Yeah. So if you hit them with 2 things, they only have a choice of taking 0, 1, or 2 things with them. If you hit them with 20 things, they might take 1 or 2, the one you really want them to take with them, but they might not. They might substitute 1 or 2 with number 18 or 20. So I think you totally understand what I'm saying here. Brendan, you're going to be a fantastic trainer. You have so much to offer, and I thought what you did was super impressive. And take this little bit of input here from the group, and and start working on applying it, and you're going to be fantastic.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I know I struggle with that all the time. Less is more. It's funny. I just said in a meeting, less is more to one of my students. I need to take more classes. I realized that doing this as a professor now for a number of years, I tell all my students to do these things, but it's more of a do as I say, not as I do, apparently.
Right. Yeah.
And so, Brendan,
It's hard too.
Brendan, because you were so strong, I focused on the constructive criticism feedback. But I mean, I like Kelly and Kent. You know, I got a bunch of notes here on all the positives. The culture eats strategy quote. I love the good coach bad. I mean, there's a long list here, but Kelly and Kent covered so many of those. I decided to hit you with a little bit of the constructive criticism there.
No, that's fine. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I think too, it's a good end of the spectrum to be on. It's a good problem to have that you have too much information to give the coaches. It's much more easily solvable.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, again, it's what do they call it? A career hazard or occupational hazard, where, you know, your job in life is to give people tons of information. And that's the major difference, and I think it was a huge wake-up call for me as well. And I wasn't doing it at the college level, but just being in the teacher mode. And then realizing these people that are coming to your workshop, sometimes it's mandatory. They have to be there. It's after a long day of work. They're not paying to be there. So there's a little bit of less motivation because they're not actually investing necessarily into it. And if you can't do something to keep them engaged and keep it connected to them, like how am I going to use this with my own kids, and really think about the kid on your team that comes to practice every day with an empty tank. Which one tool you think would work for that kid?
Yeah.
You know, something that simple. And that's going to make that coach go to practice tomorrow and go, Timmy, he's the kid. He's not a jerk. He just has an empty tank.
Yeah.
I, as a coach, can't just keep saying, good job, Jimmy. I need to say what he's doing well. I need to be truthful. So that's what Ruben's talking about. Like, if you can take one thing away, what would it be? Start with that one thing. This is what helped me. Start with one thing from each principal. Focus on that one thing. Like you said, I think what I got out of your honoring the game was model. Modeling is so crucial. Start with that one thing and then support it with a few simple stories, details, but mostly pull it out of the audience.
Yeah.
Because they're your greatest resource.
Yeah.
And then you can be the expert coming in at the end. If you know you're right. And you know why I know you're right? I know why you know culture is so important, because Peter Drucker, who's an amazing strategist, he says this. Or you know why it's so hard to respect officials? Because there's this book called Influence, and you know, like something like that. So instead of telling them, reaffirm with the audience what they're doing correctly based on all your knowledge and research. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
All right. Well, I'm excited for both of you guys. I appreciate you taking a little extra time here today.
No problem.
Again, I wanted to give you a lot of feedback, Brendan, because it's the first time that we've seen you do it. So I appreciate you guys jumping in. And both of you are in an area where there's not a chapter specifically yet. So we're going to get you in contact with Sonia is going to be in touch about workshops in your general vicinity. What we've said, a lot of the people, Brendan, like in Richmond area, North Carolina, let us know if you're like in the DC area or if that's an easy commute for you, because that's where a lot of our workshops are. And Kent, same thing. When you're close to like Seattle area or even traveling, you know, over the summer, we tell a lot of our trainers, if you have travel plans over the summer and you want to throw in a workshop here and there, let us know where you are, and we'll try to see where we can get you in. Okay. Because that's the next step for you guys, is to plug you into a live workshop and let you try it for real people rather than a computer screen.
All right.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Real people that aren't an inch tall, which is a little better.
Awesome.
All right, so I will contact Sonia, and I'll give her all of your information, and you guys will be copied on that to know the next steps. But I'm always here as a resource until you guys are officially certified and off on your own solo. You can always contact me as a resource, and I'll be happy to help you out with whatever you need.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Ruben.
Nice to meet you.
Take care.
Did you want to stay on, Ruben?